Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're back making a video that I did not expect to be making, but I have to say I am extremely happy that I am. This is the Motherlode +4, my first real foray into Mythic Plus, and I know a +4 is not the most interesting or prestigious thing out there, but there is a bevy of things that are very, very interesting about this dungeon that we want to talk about, and you will notice a few of them immediately. As a caveat, this is of course taken from the live stream, so yeah, I can't really do much about that. You'll have to suffer through it, but hopefully you'll find the gameplay itself to be interesting enough. And one of the reasons that it's interesting is because I am not playing a tank. I'm playing a Holy Paladin. If you guys are new to the channel, or not necessarily abreast of what's going on, I played a healer since TBC into mid Legion, and switched to tank as a main for raids, and obviously the rest is history on the channel. But I went back to healing on the beta because I wanted to see the approach of the dungeon layout, not this dungeon, but all dungeons really, from other tanks. I think that's one of the best ways that you can learn is by the example of others. So the example that could be gained would be either, by watching the guy stream or just playing the game with another tank. And that's the way I like to do it. It was entertaining. We had a good time doing it, and we're actually in a dungeon with a good friend of the channel, Tagore, or I hope that's how you say it. I've been saying it that way anyway. Yeah, good friend of the channel, frequent viewer playing Blood Death Knight. So this is really a win-win in all fronts, okay? One, we're playing a pretty fun spec. I really like Holy Paladin. I have a lot of good things to say about it. Two, we're watching a Blood Death Knight play, which is obviously what I'm going to be playing in BFA. And three, we're testing out the Motherlode, which has just gotten added back in this week. If you're not aware, they removed it for about a month. It was gone about a month, and they completely remade the, I guess really, I don't know, the aesthetics of the dungeon. The aesthetics of the dungeon are what's changed. Really, nothing else has changed about the layout or the mobs or anything like that. Maybe it still has some tweaking, but at this point, I'd imagine not. But you will notice a visual spectacle in this dungeon. Some of the textures that they added are absolutely gorgeous. And I have to say, the night skybox that seems to be present around the clock in here is absolutely breathtaking. They did such a good job nailing down the aesthetics. And another thing that you won't actually get to here, but is very, very potent in the dungeon's atmosphere, is the sound itself. The music is absolutely spectacular. Hopefully you guys have checked it out by now or seen it on the live stream. It is really nice. You could even go back in Thursday's live stream and watch me do this live if you want. But anyway. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the dungeon, okay? Now, the dungeon itself is not wholly different from the last time I made a video on this, which was when it first got added, but there is some things that surprised me. One of them is these mobs that do this ice spritzer, or however you might say that. If they complete that channel, they stun you. I feel like that's new, but it's been a while since I've done this on Mythic or, higher than Heroic. I don't know if that's new, and of course it was gone for so long, but there you see it, that ice spritzer. It gets interrupted, but earlier in the dungeon I did actually get feared by it, or stunned by it, and then another, so the Warlock got stunned by it. I tried bopping him and giving him freedom. It will not remove it, so just something to keep in mind there. But this pack is raping us, I have to say it. It is absolute mayhem. Some of the packs in here are very dangerous, and it should be noted that this is teaming. So really, yet another reason why this is the ideal dungeon for me to record. If you guys know me and my love for Mythic Plus, a lot of it comes for trash. I kind of like how trash proliferates throughout dungeons, and especially with some of the affixes, it's what really makes the dungeon run fun, is dealing with the trash. So what better way than a Motherlode, which is probably, if not clearly, the dungeon with the most trash. It's up there. Shrine of the Storm doesn't have as much trash, but it's got way more complicated trash. This place is pretty nuts, and the trash itself being very voluminous as it was, on top of teaming. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure every position of teaming, but there's a couple really notable ones that you will see throughout the dungeon. But anyway, this is the first video, and the thing that you hopefully will notice out of the gate is the amount of damage I am doing. And this is on a character with no intellect weapon, as I was playing mostly a tank for the longest time, and frankly, a character that I really should have no business playing in any type of Mythic Plus scenario. I'm under geared as hell. and I'm underexperienced to doubt. There's no way around it. It is absolutely something that I am not. It's been a long time since I cared about Holy Paladin, let's put it that way. But some really nice additions to the class's kit, and I'm back in love with it, honestly. It's really fun for 5-mans. I don't think I would ever really love it again in raids unless they go back to the old mastery. But I had a good time in this dungeon, and I could see myself playing it more. But as you see, that burst with... I can't remember exactly what it's called. Holy Avenging Crusader, something like that. It used to be a PvP talent, but it effectively makes your auto attacks, your judgments, and your Crusader strikes do a lot more damage. And then the damage that they do, like a big percent, actually I think it's like 3 times the damage they do heals 3 people or something like that. So really great for 5-mans. I don't think it's going to be the best option for DPS as a Holy Paladin in general, but it's almost stupid not to take it just because it does, it does both jobs very well, which is something that, in the past other healers like Discipline and of course Mistweaver as well used to be able to do very well. But Holy Paladin, has kind of not been doing that this expansion. So anyway, here you're going to see some very volatile trash. This is where things really start to heat up. The trash itself is, it's nothing crazy, but after 2 of the mobs, I can't remember the names of them. I'm not great with names, as you guys know, but yeah, the mobs that are doing all these bombs on the ground, when they die, they do an explosion. And this is going to be really, it's going to cost us a lot of time, as you see there. So basically, that mob type, as it's dying, you could either interrupt it. I don't know if it could actually be properly interrupted, but grips and stuns and knockbacks and all that, you can use that and it will prevent the cast from getting off. Or you could just move out of it, And obviously, we're not moving out of it very frequently. So you're going to see that happen a lot. But yeah, this is tough trash. As you see, the Blood DK, like I said, good player. He's a friend of ours. But he is taking a lot of fucking damage, and he's healing for a lot too. So already you're seeing Blood DK top HPS on a pack like this. Pretty much any situation where I'm not having to heal the group very much at all, he is going to be the top HPS. And as it was in the beginning, is so in the end, right? It should be this way. I think this is Blood DK's calling. It's the way the class works. So a lot of people look at this as a state of imbalance. But, I mean, you see how much damage he's taken, right? And he's still not able to necessarily keep himself topped off. It's a lot more balanced. Right now, at least, it'll probably eventually get to the point where in 5-mans it's out of control again. But, a lot of the reasons that they were doing so much HPS in BF and Legion was just because of the artifact. A lot of the stuff on the artifact was clearly overtuned for 5-mans, but balanced for raids. And I think you'll probably have that same scenario. On the counterpoint, Holy Paladin is in a great place for 5-man healing yet again. They lost a lot of their bulk, but realistically, the stuff that they had natively, like Bubble and DP, they're still there. And I do think that Light of the Martyr is a lot stronger. I don't know. I'm not sitting here analyzing Holy Paladin. It's not my goal on the beta. But, playing it in this dungeon, I feel like Holy Shock and Light of the Martyr do an incredible amount of HPS on their own. Of course, Light of the Martyr drains your own health, so kind of a double-edged sword there. But I think it's very good for 5-mans, especially in a scenario where you're already kind of naturally bulky, and you might not necessarily have to worry about your own HP as much as potentially the other people. And we had this discussion, oh, there you go, I do it again. We had this discussion on the tank videos, but again, the Paladin toolkit is actually quite good. Things like Bop and Freedom and Sack, these are good for the dungeon overall, not just for the tank, and not just for you as a healer. They're good for players in general. And I think the Holy Paladin brings this in a lot more comfortable position than, say, a prop Paladin does. It's just more natural that it comes from the healer. So, yeah, anyway, I think Holy Paladin is going to be a great healer again. I'm not willing to commit to healer tier list rankings yet, but it certainly seems like out of the gate that they're in a great position. I've heard a lot of great things about Monk, but it does seem like the general consensus, at least on some average, is that they're simply overtuned. They simply do too much healing. Whereas for Holy Paladin, the kit itself is what I am very impressed by. But no matter what kit we're talking about, as you see, doing a lot of DPS, doing a lot of HPS, still got to move out of mechanics. And me and the Warrior are struggling with this, but luckily the tank is doing very well. And as you see, doing a lot of healing. So that's good. So all around, this is a great demonstration of 2 of my favorite specs that have ever been in the game, Paladin and Death Knight, Blood and Holy respectively. Really nice, and I think they're going to be very good in 5-mans yet again. But this is not what this video is about. It is about the dungeon itself. And as you see here, this is a major teaming obstacle. A lot of extra mobs in this pack. And guy is getting hit hard. It's a really dangerous pack. A lot of trash and a lot of mechanics to deal with too. You know, they're doing this earth shield mechanic. They're doing this whatever, like they're throwing out these rock shields. They're throwing out bombs. The main guy is kind of like guarding the others. It's a complicated pack, guys. And I have to say, this dungeon is really, without question, the most complicated trash dungeon, I would say. And Shrine of the Storm is up there, but it's only really in the first part of the dungeon. The rest of the dungeon is not too bad. But this part, it gets a lot worse as it goes on. So, yeah, I'm getting tilted by dying to that. My own fault, 100%, obviously. But, yeah, you're going to have to look out for that. I mean, this is only on a 4. Of course, I'm under-geared, but it's one-shotting us. So, I could see a lot of time lost to this. Now, we don't make the timer, but it's really not because of anything that you're watching right now. You'll see what really slows us down in the future. But this boss is definitely no joke, even though it's fortified and not tyrannical or whatever, and it's only a 4. The boss itself is doing a lot of damage. And what we learned from multiple iterations on the, multiple attempts on this fight this weekend was that it's all front loaded. The more throughput you can do in the very beginning of the fight, the better. And that works really well in the modern dungeon age where, everybody's pre-potting and popping all their stuff on the pull, potentially with Bloodlust. You want to just get those ads down as quickly as possible. And the rest of the fight is actually very easy. As you see, I wish I didn't pop everything on the pull, even though it helped me heal. I really could have done a lot of damage right now. We got a lot of value out of the DPS abilities that Holy Paladin could offer. But it's a great fight for Blood DK, that's for sure. Really good fight for Blood DK, honestly. Yeah, so there you go. So apparently the bombs were broken at one point, and now they're fixed again, so don't run through them. Good tip there for anybody doing this dungeon. But so watch what we do here. This is a full credit to him. He came up with this idea here. I don't know, maybe other people have been doing this. Realistically, they probably have, but this is a very smart play, going around the left. But unfortunately, one of the mobs is bugged here, and it evades out, like pretty much permanently evades out. And that is going to absolutely kill our chances at completing this on time, because I don't have any mana ever, literally. I can't drink, and we're constantly sitting there waiting. I eventually start dying, etc. So anyway, I do think this is the route. And yet again, another really good reason why I'm happy that I got to record this, because this is a dungeon that the route is going to be extremely important. Now, we'll see what the count looks like. I didn't pay attention to it when we were doing it live, but I have a feeling we're probably way over count. And this dungeon strikes me as one that you're going to be way over count. I think it's inevitable. There's a lot of trash in here, and I assume when there's this much trash, they want you to skip stuff. And it would be dangerous to skip stuff. I have to tell you that, because we are wiping, obviously with the combat bug, it wouldn't even be possible. But, the reset on this, when you die here, it's all the way back. It's way back there. So if we did skip and wiped at some point up ahead here, we'd have a long run back, including that little cart ride. So anyway, at this point, I noticed that we are stuck in combat, and I'm pretty much screwed. I can't do anything. Basically just sitting there and waiting for mana to return. But while we wait, there's opportunity for the patrol to pat and all this. Now, those masterminds, they are really dangerous. They're one of the hardest mob types, I'd say, in any dungeon. They have seemingly a ton of health, and they actually heal themselves with this leech orb. I'm not exactly sure what the best route to avoid that is. Probably to avoid them would be the best route, but unless you're invising here, I don't think you're going to be able to. And even if you did, this one especially doesn't seem like something that we could outright avoid, because it's going to pat into the next pack. So I guess realistically, if we came to this point and then invis to the boss or something like that, skip to at least the pack in front of the boss, that might be the most expedient way. But like I said, it's going to depend on the trash count, which I really didn't study while we were in the dungeon. But on top of that, these troll guys, they do this echo blade mechanic, which I believe is a silence. And then they also do this knockback, which is, man, it's ravenous. I have to say it. It's brutal having a knockback in such close quarters when there's so much trash surrounding you. As you see there, getting knocked back. Luckily there was no other trash there, but many times I've done this. Even in the past when we did the old route, you would get people just getting knocked in all 4 directions and aggroing 3 to 4 different trash packs. So this is going to be a nightmare of a Mythic Plus, guys. I could already see it. It's probably not quite as bad as Seat, but it's up there. Some of the trash is really voluminous. It's got a lot of really complicated mechanics, and there's a lot of patrols, especially in the middle of the dungeon. But really, what you're about to see here is the craziest part, all right? So anyway, at this point, I'm going to die because I'm completely out of mana, and you can't really see it because the stream boss is kind of in the way there. But yeah, when we pull it, you're going to see there is a lot of mobs there. In fact, not only are there a lot of mobs, but some of the mobs are, I guess, maybe bugged. They're standing on top of each other, like directly on top of each other. So you can't even really tell that there's two there. But when we pull it, you see, I think there might be 7 mobs in this pack on teaming. And obviously, you know, kiting ain't what it used to was, or whatever you might say about it. You know, it's going to be a lot harder to kite. And if you could kite, this would be the one. But, you know, there's nowhere to kite. Like, I'm not really sure where you'd go. Like, we'd have to pull a lot more trash, I think. So the guy wants the hunter to trap, but I think he's AFK. Or he DC'd, something like that. So we're just going to end up going. I'm going to pop DPS CDs on the trash because this is something that we really need to get ahead of. And yeah, I think this might be one of the hardest pulls in the game. I don't know about teaming in other dungeons, but as you see, that's a lot of health bars. And 2 of them are the masterminds. Yeah, which are dangerous, honestly. They are. I have to think that they're the hardest dungeon, the hardest mob in any dungeon. Especially how callously they're just kind of laid around. They're not like this looming monstrous mob that you might think, oh, we got to watch out for that. It's just a little goblin, you know what I mean? Just kind of floating and not really menacing at all looking. But when you pull it, you realize you're fighting that thing for a long time. So anyway, let's see. So you see the 2 on the right there are actually directly on top of each other. So I guess there's only 5 or 6. I don't know. It's hard to see with the small. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to burst through this pretty hard. Warrior, guys, is in a great place right now. It seems like Arms especially. Fury, I think, is doing all right too. But I have seen Arms absolutely ripping things open. And obviously, you know, Threat is going to be a problem with that. But realistically, this guy's handling it well. And more so, our tank is handling it quite well. So that's good to see. I'm happy that Fury is good, or whatever. Arms is good at least. Warrior in general is always something that I've always found to be a high damage slot in any dungeon. And of course, now that they bring a buff, they're going to have some value. So yet again, another boss, but this time I have very low mana. I'm a little concerned with that, but we are going to blow through it pretty quickly. This boss is pretty dangerous, honestly, but it's very easy to avoid its mechanics. So she's going to shoot out that Azurite stuff. Warlock was just on the edge of it. Got to move all the way out from it to make sure you're not still getting hit by it. And other than that, it's going to come from the edges. So this room actually got a pretty big visual revamp. This stuff used to be more looked like caramel, but now it's kind of got a bluer tint to it. And there's that mechanic. That is the big mechanic of the fight. As you see, the Warlock did not move from it properly and got pushed out of the arena and died. So that is the definitely hardest part of the fight. And, you know, I'm speeding it up very fast here because otherwise this would be a 40-plus minute video. But yeah, it's a tough fight, man. It's really all the dungeon bosses in here are relatively difficult. And, you know, like I said, this is not tyrannical, which I'd imagine would make them a lot harder. I don't know. I've not really done tyrannical on a real Mythic Plus yet, so I don't actually know what potentially might come. If it's going to be like it was in Legion, where, you know, bosses are going to take like 3+ minutes and you might be dying constantly. People are getting one-shot by mechanics. I don't know. But for now, we do see a pretty good example of what the dungeon might hold, and a lot of that danger is going to be in trash. Now, from here on, things get even weirder. There's a couple evade bugs. These bombs spawn, and sometimes they don't run to the targets. But that's actually a fine thing, me dying there. Unfortunately, I ended up healing somebody, so I'm going to die on purpose and heal, drink the mana, whatever, get to full mana if I can, which I think I can. Yes, that's good. But they're going to keep on going. The bombs themselves, I believe, do fire damage when they explode. If not, it might be physical, but I think it's fire. So AMS is great for that as Blood DK. And, of course, all the other tanks, good luck. I don't know. Maybe you could just use a 50% reduction to reduce the bomb. I don't know. But it does a lot. And I don't know if that damage or even their health is affected by Fortify in any way. But it is a pretty important part of the dungeon, I would have to say. It does a lot of damage. As you see, I got smacked by that one. And even the dot they do is pretty bad. So, yeah, I don't know. This is it's interesting. It's kind of old school. At that point, I actually get up because it is pouring rain outside. I know nobody cares, but yeah, it was really, 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 really raining. And I had all my windows open, so I had to close them. But yeah, come back, no big deal. Everybody's still alive. But what's happening here is this mob is stuck evading, and nobody could hit it because it's on me. And I didn't actually realize it was on me because I was kind of still Trying to figure out what was going on with the windows there. But yeah, this happens pretty frequently. Obviously, this is going to be fixed in time. But a lot of the mobs in this area evade. I'm not really sure how or why, but yeah, I guess it's partially to do with the revamp of the dungeons layout. I don't know. At first, I thought it might have been intended. I thought the mob was like something that was fixated on the target and you couldn't, like it was obscured or something like that. But then we realized it's just evading. So this route, I think, is the best way going around the side here. I've seen a lot of people take this route, and, you know, he's taking it too. It does look like there's some options up on the north end, though. And now that they kind of patched this, there was a pretty easy skip up here. Used to be able to skip a lot of the dungeon. As you see, we're way over trash count, though. So, yeah, realistically, we needed to pull a lot less mobs here. And I guess maybe the beginning. Realistically, you know, it kind of reminds you of Grimrail Depot. If you guys remember that dungeon, it was, you would skip everything that you would skip would be in the very beginning of the dungeon. You'd open with an invis pot. And I could see that being the case in this dungeon, but the problem is you're not going to get very far with an invis pot. So this will probably be another one of the rogue dungeons, ones where you really got to have rogues to skip as much as possible, just because there's a lot of trash in here. But realistically, people will probably find, you know, crazy new ways to skip a bunch of stuff without rogues or without invis pots. So I'm excited to see it. I am. I love 5-mans, and I think that's one of the most electric part of 5-mans is that every group might do the strategy a little different. So anyway, used to be able to walk right up that hill, but they changed that. You can't do that anymore. So now you have to pull this pack, and this is a pretty tough pack. This is 4 mobs plus bombs, and as you see, the bomb, of course, still does a lot of damage, but the mobs do too, and they have a lot of health. One of the mob types is going to try to repair the big robot guy, so you could interrupt or stun that, etc., and that is obviously going to help, but yeah, overall, the trash in here is quite beefy, quite bulky, quite dangerous. Stuff that's going to take a while. As you see, we spend a lot of time on trash. Easily, the timer is all because of the trash. You know what I mean? Like, we destroy these bosses, even though it's sped up. We're really not losing much time on bosses. So again, I go die on purpose so I could have full mana for when we pull the final boss, and wait until you guys see. If you have yet to see it, it is a really, really cool area where we fight the final boss. I think you'll be quite impressed. They did a pretty cool job with it, and I wish you could hear the music because it's really energetic and it's really jazzy, honestly. There's like a saxophone and all that, which, yeah, I don't really hear that a lot in WoW music, but it makes sense. You know, it's a goblin area, and look at this. This is cool. This is what you expect from a goblin area, you know what I mean? There's a giant rocket behind the guy who's in like a modified Mimiron's head looking thing. But the boss itself is pretty scary. This might be one of the harder end bosses. It's kind of a theme that you see. The end bosses are all multi-phase. You know, there's a lot of mechanics happening, and they require some coordination. So that Gatling gun could be dangerous. That big red bomb could be dangerous. It's very large, so you really want to make sure that you're moving it out. And then, of course, when he barrages the ground with rockets, you know, if it's dangerous, or if you're all in one area, it gets really dangerous because it's difficult to move out of it. But, of course, the core mechanic here is dealing with this phase. Even when they do this in, like, higher-end groups, people still don't really seem to know this. In fact, I think myself included, I make a mistake here. But, yeah, as you see, the pillars are still there. It's the same fight as it used to be. Yeah, there we go. So it went on a guy who was not in the right position. You need to get on top of the pillars and make the boss hit them, which we're doing terribly. But every time he hits the ground, he's actually doing a ton of damage, like a ton of damage. And we're just wasting my mana. Like, oh, my God, look at this. I'm actually complaining about it because it's like I'm spending so much mana just healing up this damage, which should not even be happening. But anyway, you're supposed to make him hit. I thought you were supposed to make him hit all 3. But recently it seems like you only have to make him hit 2. I'm not really sure. But then on some pulls that I've had on like Heroic and stuff, I've had... So did you see how much that just healed for? Oh my God, that was crazy. This ability is really good. That's the talent I was talking about before. It just healed all 3 people from like 75% to full. It must have been a crit Holy Shocker or a crit Judgment or something. But anyway... yeah, I've had it where all 3 of the things are right on top of each other. I don't know. Anyway, that's that. See you guys in the next one. Really enjoying this. This was really fun, and we had a good time doing it. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.